Well, hiya, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. I wanted to come to you today and present a new book tag, a new one to add to the long list of book tags that are out there. I'm going to upload this early with the idea that possibly we can get this started on Tag Tuesday. And so let me explain why I wanted to do this. So recently, back on, I think it was January 15th, so it's been, a couple of weeks ago, I celebrated my 5th year here on BookTube. It's been 5 years and it's been wonderful, wonderful experience for me. And I also hit some other big milestones for my BookTube channel. Not only am I 5 years old, I hit 500 videos a few videos back. I'm over 2,000 subscribers, and the channel's just doing good, and I'm pretty proud of it. And it was a it was a project of love. I had started that out 5 years ago to have a little bit of a project to work on with my daughter at the time. She had her own BookTube channel, and we were just conversing back and forth, and we got to paying attention to channels out there on that were all about books, and my daughter had told me you could do that, and so I was like, okay, I'll try it. And yeah, here we are 5 years later, and I've made many friends out here. And I got to thinking about, I've been on here 5 years, and so, a few things that my channel needs to work on, and one of them was, putting videos out regularly. The last couple of years have been a little rough just because, we moved into a new house, and just to find quiet time, my house tends to echo, and so and sound travels quite a bit. We got all wood floors and it travels, and so it's always a little bit noisy. And so to find that quiet time and then, just have the energy to do it, so that I don't want to put a video out that's lacks energy. And so, just trying to straighten all those things out. But anyway, long story short, about a year ago, I had a subscriber. I think it was a year ago. I'm hoping it wasn't 2 years ago, but I think it was a year ago. I'd had a subscriber that left a comment on one of my very first, matter of fact, it may have been the very first original BookTube tag that I had created, and it was the Civil War history tag, and or Civil War history book tag. And he had left a comment asking, can you make another one of these book tags for, he had asked for one on the Mexican War, and he had asked for one on the War of 1812. And I've struggled. I wanted to, and I told him I would get it done, and I've wanted to, but I literally have not read a lot of books that are based on these time periods. But I got to thinking, you know what? I told him I needed to do it. That was like a year ago, and I do apologize to that subscriber. Sorry about that, but hopefully this will, make up for the time. But I wanted to get this book tag out there. So this is going to be the War of 1812 book tag, the War of 1812 book tag. And again, I preface this with, I have not read a lot of full books that are based on this time period. And so what I've done is I've went through my collection. A couple of them I have read. There's a handful of them that I have not read that I have in my collection. And then I have several of them that I was just looking up for general histories or ones that I had heard of. And I'm going to put those as my answers with the idea that hopefully sometime in the future I'll find those books at a used bookstore, buy them, and read them. And so really what I would like for this tag to be is, I'd like people to add to it. If you can't answer all the questions, maybe put your answers of the questions that you can answer down in the comments section, or feel free to do the tag if you feel you can do all of the questions. By all means, do the tag, because I want this viewer that had asked me to do this, I want him to have lots of book recommendations, because I think that was the whole purpose of him asking me to do it. And so I will up front, I'll go ahead and tag my two people real fast. And they're the only two that I know of off the top of my head that I am like 100% sure they could answer these questions in the tag and have plenty of book recommendations. And so again, it's the War of 1812 book tag, and I'm going to tag Mark over at Richardson Reads, because I know he's a big naval history guy, and he's going to have, and he lives up in the New England area, and so he's going to have lots of different examples of this. And I look forward to Mark, I look forward to hearing what your answers are if you choose to do this. And then Steve Donoghue, of course, because he's read a little bit about everything, or a lot about everything. And I would love to hear Steve's answers on these, because I know I've heard in various videos, you know, just here and there, different books that he's mentioned that would go with this tag. And so those are the only two that I would know, like, for sure, that have read enough history in this time period to be able to answer these questions. But if you're somebody out there that I don't realize you've read that many, please feel free to do it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this book tag, and we'll have this as it's going to be kind of a booktube birthday celebration. 5 years here on booktube. I'm going to create an original tag. So here it is, the War of 1812 book tag. And so the first question on this, the first prompt is, what are the best books that you've ever read on the British and American navies during the late 1700s, early 1800s time period? And I thought this would be a good question for this, for the first part of this tag, because the War of 1812, a lot of that, there were land battles, yes, but a lot of it was fought out on the open water between the British navies and the American navies. And so if you followed the channel long enough, you know I don't have a lot of naval history that I've read. That's something that in the recent, like last year or two, I've been picking up a couple here and a couple there, but I don't have a ton. And so I'm more of an Army guy. I haven't read a lot on the Navy, and it's nothing against the Navy. That's just where my book collecting ended up going. But anyway, the first book, and I'll try to get pictures of these to put up in the corner of the screen, but the first one's going to be on the British Navy. And again, I don't know if this is like the best history out there. It's just one that I found online that looked and sounded interesting to me. It's The Command of the Ocean, A Naval History of Britain, 1649 to 1815. This is volume 2, I believe, of the series by N.A.M. Roger. And so that's going to be the one that I'm going to choose for the British side of this. And on the American side, and I have not read this, I look forward to it because I hear a lot of good things about this author. On the American side, I chose 6 Frigates, The Epic History of the Founding of the U.S. Navy by Ian W. Toll. And of course, Ian W. Toll has written some World War II histories of the Navy, kind of, I think they're more based out in the Pacific. And I have one of them upstairs. I can't remember which one, but I know I have one of them upstairs, and I look forward to reading that. But I had found this over at Books Revisited and saw that, and I was like, yes, I do not have anything in my collection on that. So I went ahead and grabbed it. I'll read the back of it to you. It says, before the ink was dry on the U.S. Constitution, the establishment of a permanent military became the most divisive issue facing the new government. The founders, particularly Jefferson, Madison, and Adams, debated fiercely, would a standing army be the thin end of a dictatorship? Would a navy protect from pirates or drain the treasury and provoke hostility? Britain alone had hundreds of powerful warships. From the decision to build 6 heavy frigates through the cliffhanger campaign against Tripoli to the war that shook the world in 1812, Ian W. Toll tells this grand tale with political insight of founding brothers and the narrative flair of Patrick O'Brian. And so looking forward to that. I just recently read my first Patrick O'Brian series. It was the first one in the naval series that he put together, and so you know, that's high praise on this. So I'm looking forward to that. That is the book I would pick for the American Navy, at least to start with. And as I said, many of you have probably got better books that you would recommend. Please do so for my sake and the subscribers' sake that asked for this. So let's move on to the second question. So the second question that I put up for this tag, the War of 1812 book tag, is, what is the best book you have read about the issues leading up to the War of 1812? Now, there are, a handful of issues, but I know one of the big issues was the impressment of sailors into the British Navy, and especially during those Napoleonic Wars. And you had a lot of warfare going on around the world around this time, and Britain needed sailors, and they were stopping ships on the high seas and forcing them into the British Navy. And so I found a book online about this. I don't own this one, but it was called The Evil Necessity: British Naval Impressment in the 18th Century Atlantic World, by Denver Brunsman. And I think this is, it's about the 18th century, so it's, throughout the 1700s, so it's not necessarily a set history on this of the time period we're looking at with the War of 1812, but it sets up the topic real well, and it looked interesting. It's one that, if I can find it, I'll definitely add it to my collection. So what would you have about BookTube? What would you add to that question? Is there other issues other than impressment that you would want to look at? So give me some examples in this tag or in the comments section. So let's move on to number 3. What is the best single volume history that you have read on the War of 1812? So I have not read a history of the War of 1812. I know that's terrible of the history teacher. It's a blank spot in my reading. I need to fix that. And I had 2 books that I saw that might help me fix this, and I've heard good things about both of them. The first one was 1812, The War That Forged a Nation by Walter Bornemann, and I have some other Walter Bornemann books in my collection, and I've read one of them for sure. I think I've read a couple of them. But he's a great historian, a good storyteller, easy to follow. And so I would look forward to that one. And then the second one is a long-standing history that was written by Theodore Roosevelt. It was one of his, it may have been his first book that he wrote, because he wrote a bunch of books, The Naval War of 1812. And that was a stand-up history of the War of 1812 for a very, very long time. And a lot of people, refer back to that. Roosevelt did a ton of research on it. Obviously, from everything I have read about that book, it's a pretty one-sided book, but nonetheless, it's pretty thorough is what I've heard. So anyway, I would like to pick that up. I've got some other books by Roosevelt in my collection, and I would love to add that one. I had found it at one time, but it was too expensive, and needless to say, I didn't take the bait on that one. So the next question in this book tag is going to be, this is number 4. This is, what is the best book on American leadership during the War of 1812? What's the best book that you've read on American leadership? And so this question's meant to be open-ended. It could be any leadership that you're seeing. I went ahead and just chose the president, but it doesn't have to be the president. It could be military leadership. It could be, although I'm going to have another question specifically for military leadership, but it could be military leadership, it could be congressional leadership, it could be, any range of, there's any number of ways of looking at that. So I'll let that be a little bit open-ended for you. But I chose James Madison, the president at the time, and I had 3 volumes sitting in my collection. I have not read any of the 3, and but I found them. They were decently priced, actually really cheap, really, especially for as good a shape as they are in. And let's see, I've heard of all 3 authors. The first one is Ralph Ketchum, and this is a big old thick biography on James Madison. Again, I have not read any of these 3. So let me know if any of them, if like one of them's better than the, of the 3, which one you think's the best. The next one, The 3 Lives of James Madison by Noah Feldman. Genius, Partisan, and President. That's another book on Madison that I found. And this next one is James Madison, A Life Reconsidered by Lynn Cheney. And another one that I found for pretty cheap. I got a good deal on it. And all three of these are pretty good sized biographies. And I am looking forward to digging into them. But what do you got out there, BookTube, on American leadership during the War of 1812? The next question on this is the flip side of it. What's the best book on British leadership during the War of 1812? Again, this question is pretty open to interpretation on who you want to consider as the leadership. So you could choose something on the Prime Minister. You could choose something on anybody in the Parliament, any of the military leadership. I chose King George III. And this is a book that I have not been able to dig into yet. Hopefully I'm going to get into this, hopefully this year. And it's The Last King of America, The Misunderstood Reign of George III by Andrew Roberts. And if you're familiar with Andrew Roberts, he writes big, chunky, monkey books. And I bought this, and I love reading about the American Revolution, which is primarily why I bought this, but it also, fits into the War of 1812 time period as well. And Andrew Roberts, I've read books by him before, and I enjoyed it. His book on Napoleon, wasn't it? Yeah, the book on Napoleon. I've not read the one on Churchill, but the one on Napoleon was a really good book. I read that last year. And anyway, wanted to recommend this one, The Last King of America. Great big old biography on George III. All right, and again, that's an open-ended question. All right, so let's move on. So let's go to question number 6, and it is, what is the best book about a general or an admiral from the War of 1812? So this could be, on land or out on sea. You choose. And I guess it could be like you could go lower in rank as well if you chose to. I'm fine with that. Again, we'll leave it open-ended. But I chose a book about Andrew Jackson. And I have this book somewhere. I have no idea what's happened to it. It should have been upstairs under Rimini, the author's name. And I had like 5 other books by him, and I could not find this one, the one I needed. But I know I own it, and it's somewhere. But this is The Battle of New Orleans, Andrew Jackson and America's First Military Victory by Robert Rimini. And Robert Rimini's a well-renowned historian, biographer, especially of Andrew Jackson. He's got some other ones out. He passed away a few years back, but excellent biographer. I have read a handful of books, like maybe 3 or 4 books by him, and I've enjoyed them. I have some more upstairs that I haven't got to yet, but he's a well-renowned Andrew Jackson or the Jacksonian era historian, and this particular book, The Battle of New Orleans, Andrew Jackson and America's First Military Victory, was a good one. I enjoyed it. It was not like super big. It was, a couple hundred pages I want to say it was between 200 and 300 pages. It wasn't very big, but gave a really good overview of the battle and of the general himself. So it's not a full-on. It's not necessarily a full-on biography of Andrew Jackson. It is, but it's of that particular era. So it's a small book. That's what I chose. So anyway, let's move on. Question number 7. What are the top 3 books about battles and or campaigns of the War of 1812 that you've ever read? Now, I've read at least one of these. I think I've read 2. And I own them, and I don't know where they're at. So I'll try to put the picture up. But the first one is another book on the Battle of New Orleans. It was a popular history by Brian Kilmeade, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was well done and easily accessible for the public, which I think is the whole point of the books that Brian Kilmeade puts out. Andrew Jackson and The Miracle of New Orleans, the battle that shaped America's destiny. And I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it takes you step by step. It's got lots of maps, lots of pictures to help help you visualize everything. And it was a pretty good little summary of the Battle of New Orleans. The second one is called, and I'm not 100% sure I've read this. I was thinking I did, possibly I did not, but Patriotic Fire. Andrew Jackson and Jean Lafitte at the Battle of New Orleans by Winston Groom. And Winston Groom's a pretty good historian that I have read before. And I am not 100% sure I've read that one. I need to go back and check my records is what I need to do. But I'm going on name recognition for the author because he's a good author. That's one I would recommend. And then the other one, I got to looking for some stuff, and I wanted to not just do the Battle of New Orleans because there was way more to the War of 1812 than just that one particular battle. And most of it was out on the open ocean or on major bodies of water anyway. So I was looking for some books, and this was one that I thought looked really interesting, and it is called The USS Lawrence versus the HMS Detroit, the War of 1812 on the Great Lakes. And this is by Mark Lardis, and this is part of the ever-famous Osprey Publishing military histories. They're really short, typically less than 100 pages, and this particular volume is out of the Duel series, D-U-E-L, Duel series, and I think it was number 79. I'm not 100% sure on the number, but I think it's 79 in the series. And I saw that one and I thought, man, that looks interesting, because if you've ever cruised through some of the Osprey books, they're full of photography, full of mapped out, computer generated maps of the battles and stuff. They fully explain everything, and just it's a visual learner's delight, and I highly recommend Osprey. And so that's the one I chose. So what 3 do you have, BookTube? Move on to question number 8. What is the best book about an event or events that come after the War of 1812? And I chose Daniel Walker Howe's What Hath God Wrought? The Transformation of America, 1815 to 1848, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. This is part of the Oxford History of the United States series, which is a absolutely wonderful series. I have not personally read this one. I've read several of the others in the series. I've read Robert Middlecoff's book on the American Revolution. I've read James McPherson's on the Civil War. I've read, there's one from recent American history, and I'm trying to remember what the author's name was. But anyway, I've read a handful of the books in the series. They're very, very good, and I've heard a whole lot of really good things about this book. It's a big one, but of course this is going to hit the era of good feelings that comes right after the War of 1812, and then this leads us all the way up to 1848, right up into the antebellum period. And so interesting stuff. It's a book that I need to get to. I highly recommend the series itself, and this one in particular covers that era right after the War of 1812. So what do you got, BookTube? All right, so moving on to question number 9, and this will be the last. Well, no, there's one more as a bonus question, I guess. So number 9, what are the best fiction books that you've read about the War of 1812? And again, my reading selection's limited, so I chose this one. I have read, absolutely love it. I love the whole series, but it's John Jake's The Seekers. And we find that one of the main characters in the book is on the USS Constitution, and he does battle out on the open waters. Ends up actually, the family's very well known for finding keepsakes that help to tell their family's history, and he finds a splinter. I'm pretty sure this is the book where he finds a splinter that big old chunk of wood that was from the USS Constitution during that battle. I'm pretty sure that's what the keepsake was. But anyway, really good book. Enjoyed that. I need to go back and reread that one. And let's see, this one's by David Nevin, 1812, and this is about that time period, about that war. I have not read this volume, but I read the volume that comes right before this, and I'm going to struggle to remember the name of it. Oh, let's see here, and of course it doesn't have it in here, does it? Anyway, BookTube, I've read the book that comes right before this, and it's a bit of a, I don't know if it's considered a series. Oh, it's right up there. Oh, I can't see it. It's up on the shelf. I can see it from here. But anyway, I like David Nevin's writings. It's pretty engrossing. It pulls you into the time period. So I chose that one for my fiction work. And now let's wrap this thing up. Let's see. Bonus question. Are there any other books you want to mention about the War of 1812, or books that you want to get to, that you really want to read? And I chose one that I noticed by a author that has a lot of credit in the bank for me. That's Allan Taylor, and he wrote The Civil War of 1812, American Citizens, British Subjects, Irish Rebels, and Indian Allies. And I read his American Colonies book in that American History series that he's put together, and it was wonderful. And so I look forward to trying to find that book and add it to my collection. So, BookTube, I'm long and winded, but now I'm finished. This is the War of 1812 book tag. Have you read enough books to do a video of your own and answer the questions? And if you're only able to answer a few of them, put your answers down in the comment section. Again, this is meant to be this is meant to help one of the subscribers help to create a book list on books about the battles that were fought during the War of 1812. And so help me in doing that. And I do realize that in my book tag, it was pretty heavy on the American side of things. I ask my fellow British viewers out there, and I know there's a lot of you, give me some books from across the pond. What history books would you recommend from the British point of view? Because I'm all about reading from both points of view. I think that's something that needs to be done and needs to be considered by all people. Again, last time I tagged Mark Richardson over at Richardson Reads, and then Steve Donoghue on his channel. I look forward to hearing what they have to say. So, BookTube, I hope you're having a good day, and I hope you enjoyed this. Until next time, happy reading.